And I want to introduce our first speaker, Carlos, who I'm going to invite to come to the stage. And he is going to be representing the Fair Player Alliance. I'm sure you have heard about that a lot, of more community and more support, but he will tell you everything about that. So welcome, Carlos. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much, Veronica, Celia as well, and all the organizers for having me here, for inviting me here. Thank you for being here. Thanks, EA, for hosting. And also, I have to dedicate some time for gratitude towards all the members of the Fair Play Alliance who have been very graceful to trusting me to come here and speak that behemoth of an alliance right now, and even trust with some insights and some information that I will be sharing with you all. So in terms of an agenda here quickly for us, so we are on track, I will talk a little bit very briefly about my bio, how did I come to be in this space of player behavior, goals for the talk, what I really hope you can take away, an introduction to the Fair Play Alliance and what it stands for, as well as recommendations on applied design, analyzing specific cases of online games from the Alliance that have applied positive systems in those games and have seen amazing results in difference in player behavior. And we'll also talk about the final takeaways just as a nice wrap up there. So in terms of goals of the talk, I really hope that you take a good information about the Fair Play Alliance, what it is, and then how you can collaborate with us, how you can join the fold, as well as actionable takeaways that you can take and, as you champion those changes in the user experience realm, and you think about positive systems and how you can encourage pro-social behavior in the first place from the game design, from the player journey point of view. So a quick bio regarding how did I come to be here. I've been in the what I call digital citizenship space for the last 10 years. Currently, I'm a director of community trust and safety for Two Hat Security out of Kelowna, British Columbia. And I used to work for Disney as well. I worked there for 6 years, Disney Online Studios. Some of you might know Club Penguin. I was definitely a penguin. I worked there for 6 years with all sorts of projects, including chat moderation, doing all that fun stuff in Portuguese and English as well. So this is a space that has been very dear to me of online safety. And more recently, I've co-founded the Fair Play Alliance with folks that are 1,000 times more intelligent than I am. So why are we here? And the reason why I ask this question is, if we just stop, like, why are we here talking about online games? I imagine it's because we really love games, right? We love creating those games, those experiences, and we enjoy playing them. So just for a quick show of hands, if you can please raise your hand in case you have made amazing friends playing games online. All right, that's quite a lot of people. So let's just anchor this conversation around that, okay? Like, what's the purpose of online games? Think about that throughout this talk. Why are there online games, and why are we playing games and creating those experiences for people? So here's a quick introduction to the Fair Play Alliance. It is a cross-industry group that now is just over 100 members, actually almost 100 members, member companies, and you'll know a lot of those, including EA games. There is also Blizzard Entertainment there, Riot Games, Epic Games as well. Two Hat is also a member, Rovio, Supercell, many other companies. So you can see how like the caliber of those companies are coming together to say, yeah, we care about player behavior, we care about creating positive experiences for our players. Because the matter of fact is players have been telling us that they do want to have better, more productive, positive experiences online. Our mission is basically to really share research and hopefully drive long-lasting changes in the player behavior space. So we want to create that proactive approach where we can help each other. And especially for us, we have a lot of large studios there. We can help folks who are starting in this space because not everybody is fortunate enough to have like a full team taking care of the player behavior side of things and of those positive systems. But if we can share that type of information, of course, with utmost respect for player privacy, but if we can share the best best practices, we can create this big network effect, and we can actually work together to make this happen instead of working in isolation. That was actually the motivation of the Fair Play Alliance. Is we had those parallel conversations all the time, and we were like, let's put our brain together. Let's actually work together and see what we can do. A little bit of terminology for us as we go through the presentation. I've been saying player behavior a lot, and we have to remember that player behavior is, at the end of the day, human behavior. We go online, and there are all those nuances. We have different cultures, we have different expectations when we go online. Some of us are more competitive, others are less competitive, and sometimes they're put together in a game of 15 minutes with a lot of people we don't know, so it's very complex, right? I'll come back to that whole idea. What's the purpose of online games? So the purpose usually is you want to be able to enjoy those games with people, and you want to have fun and fulfill that purpose, fulfill whatever game journey it is that you are enjoying there. We used to talk about the word toxicity, but that was such a harsh label, such an ambiguous term as well, like what is toxic, what does that mean? Instead, we're talking about disruptive behavior. And when we say disruptive behavior, we are saying anything that disrupts the flow of the game and the intended purposes of the game. So if we think about cheating, that's a way of disrupting the game. If we're thinking about hate speech, that's another way of disrupting the game. And killing yourself so you cause a problem for your teammates. There's so many different ways to do that. Griefing and it goes on. So instead of relying on this whole idea of, oh, let's just talk about disruptive behavior, right? Let's just look into how we can deal with that bad behavior. For us, it's more about how can we first remove the disruption from the game, but the most importantly is how can we actually focus on the positive systems and craft systems that are conducive to positive behavior in the first place. Like game design is the most powerful thing we can do to actually lead to that. Yeah, for sure, we're going to have to enforce some things, community guidelines. There are many different techniques and things we have to do, and those are super important as well, but game design is the actual golden nugget. This is where we craft the experience that will be conducive to pro-social behavior and not disruptive behavior. In terms of collaboration and what we do at the Fair Play Alliance, we support each other, and there are daily collaborations that happen in our Discord server where we can actually do this very much on real time, right? But we have monthly webinars where we bring specialists from other areas. For example, folks who really understand suicide prevention. So we're really trying to touch a very varied, a broad spectrum of topics with our members. And we are also starting to partner with a lot of like-minded groups in the industry too. And we are starting to co-speak at events. I know that there are some Fair Play Alliance members right here today, and we're creating resources too that we hope to push for the gaming industry, but also beyond the gaming industry, because the gaming industry pioneers a lot of things when it comes to positive behavior and to player behavior. So let's take a look now at specific systems from games that are from our members. So I picked a few, and they were very generous to share some insights with me so I can share it with you today. And basically, we'll dive right into and understand some of what makes those positive systems so great. We'll take a look at two more explicit systems here. One is from Overwatch, which are the endorsements. The endorsements feature, you're probably familiar with it if you play Overwatch, is fairly recent. And then League of Legends honor system, specifically the 2.0, the new honor system. So in terms of Overwatch, it was very interesting that they kept it simple, but they really delivered what the community was looking for. They have a few categories that you can basically endorse your teammates and players for. So the shot caller, the leader, the strategist, and then you actually use those points to encourage and recognize, right, like the good teammates, sportsmanship, all really important pillars of that system. In terms of motivation, they really wanted to recognize the positive members of the community. And that's something that they wanted to give the community the opportunity to enjoy Overwatch the way that they wanted and focus on that positive gameplay. But they also wanted to prevent users who were at the cusp, at the edge of becoming disruptive. So that's very important to note, because if you can actually do that, remember, through game design, prevent that friction in the first place, that's really important. In terms of how, an overall view into it, there are 5 levels of endorsement, so you keep progressing, right? And that in itself is an encouragement for you. And the thing is, it affects the player experience, it affects how you're moving throughout the game. It's not just an afterthought, right? It's part of the game. It's a very important part of the game. And your endorsement levels can be affected by your behavior elsewhere, right? So if you're being reported, if other things are happening, that's going to affect your endorsement level. So it's not very enticing to engage in those other things if you're going to lose your endorsement level. And not only that, but there are tangible benefits for using those systems. So when you're actually engaging endorsements, you can get loot boxes that are connected to that. So you can see there's an actual consequence for engaging in that process there. And here is the stat that the team shared with me. And if you look at that, 22 to 29% decrease in disruptive players across regions for Overwatch. Like that's a huge decrease. And I have to say, though, it's not just endorsements alone. It's also the looking for a group feature that I'll be talking about later on. So you'll be able to understand that the combination of both things being released led to this decrease. For League of Legends, I want to briefly look at the Honor 2.0 system here. And basically, you might be familiar with the idea that they released Honor back in 2016, I believe. That was the first version, their first stab at encouraging that type of sportsmanship behavior. But they have done an overhaul of it, a very thoughtful overhaul. And if you were at GDC this last year, you probably saw Kimberly Vo from Riot Games talking about this whole overhaul. And it's an amazing talk. I encourage you to watch it if you have access to the vault. But basically, here are some design takeaways. She really talks about, in terms of encouragement, consequences, and environment, right? So encouragement is like, are we encouraging, they thought, the right, the positive, the productive behaviors in the first place? That's the first question that they asked. The second one was, well, are there consequences for those things, right? For actually doing something, for recognizing a teammate, for using that system. Are there consequences? And are the consequences timely as well when they're being applied? That's another thing to consider for player behavior. And also environment. Is the environment encouraging positive behavior overall? Is it actually walking the talk and creating that nice situation for players to be sportsman-like, to be positive? And very importantly, they focused on giving those positive systems and Honor 2.0 prominence and context. So it's not just an isolated thing that I might use in the gameplay, but it's something that's really important at the forefront of the gameplay. So that's a key takeaway to keep in mind. It's at the forefront, right? So you think about it, where do you put those positive systems in the game really tells the player how do you care about it, how much do you care about it? Is it that important to you and to the game? So some stats here from Honor 2.0. Players send honors about 60% of the time, most recently, like stats. And in terms of players receiving honor, at least 29% of players receive at least one honor. So it's being used, and they have measured disruptive behavior going down, which has been encouraging for the team there. So you can see that similarly to the Overwatch team, there has been decrease. People are engaging, people are using it. And a stat at the bottom that I put there, that for them it's really important, and remember at the beginning of the talk I was saying how players have been telling us that they care about this. When surveyed actually for League of Legends, players said that 95% of players said that they actually care about sportsmanship. It's important to them. So there is a little bit in the industry of this whole idea of maybe a minority that might say, oh, why do we need to do those things? Like, we don't need that. Well, actually, most players want that. Most players want a change in that space. This section here, we're just going to talk a little bit about how can you design the steps to getting into a really great gaming session. So players can get into a great gaming session by the way that things are designed for that first experience there. So I mentioned Overwatch and the looking for a group feature. Basically, like, the whole idea about looking for a group is they really wanted players to control their gaming experience. So they can create the group that they want, the team that they want, with the roles that they want, maybe a certain amount of tanks, damage, and healers. And they also wanted to make sure that they can have different settings, right? Maybe voice chat has to be applied for this group, maybe not. They can name the group, they can customize it. The whole idea was to give users more control over their experience, their gaming experience. And remember, it was released with endorsements, and that's what caused that decrease in disruptive behavior. There's a subtle system from League of Legends, and this one is old, it's not anything new, but it made a change. It reduced friction for them quite a lot. If you play League of Legends in the past and you remember, you didn't really get to choose your role. Well, you would request to play a role, but then it would cause conflicts when you were just waiting there for people to be assigned different roles. And that caused conflict even within the team. But after, what they did is, before you enter a queue, now you actually get to select your top choice and your second choice. So you get assigned, you have a chance to getting assigned to that, and there's a little bit more control and less friction of that dispute between teammates. That in itself already reduces a lot of the friction there. One thing that I wanted to mention as well is they did a really great bridge in terms of sportsmanship and sportswomanship in the game and outside of the game. If you've seen this, it's called Honor in Real Life. And they had those videos with cosplay showing what would be a sportsman-like behavior offline. And they bridged that gap with what is sportsman-like behavior in League of Legends. So there are different ways to also pull this together and bridging it not only online and offline and showing why this matters. For this section here, I wanted to talk about more in the side of community management and things that are outside of the game but still interacting with the users, and how can a company drive that positive, productive tone. I got some information from my friends at Rovio, and they are very much focused on empowering the community offline and in their different social medias and other areas, forums where they are interacting with their users. And the way they do this is they grant moderator privileges to the top community players there who are very valuable, who are really interested and want to help a little bit more, and that makes a difference. But not only that, they encourage fan art and creations that end up making the game as well. So they end up creating things in the game that are based on the user's creation, which is very encouraging in itself. They encourage positive talk as well, and I keep going back to this, right? Most users, and I can tell you this, I work with many different communities from our clients and partners at Two Hat, and most users are engaging in positive chat. Of course, we are not stale, we change our behavior online, but most users are at any given time. Like, you look at disruptive behavior in chat, it can be very small, sometimes 2-3% of the total chat or total images being shared in a community. It's usually positive. So Rovio understands this, that most people want to talk about the game and have fun, and they focus on that side of things. And they also have all sorts of fun giveaways that always help to keep that upbeat mentality. So in terms of takeaways, I just wanted to recap a few things here. So I can't stress enough how important it is to actually give positive systems prominence and context. if we're really serious about this whole idea of we want better gaming experiences that are more inclusive, they are truly more productive and less disruptive, we should give this prominence. We should give this the right context and the right importance. We should also tie it to the game and make it tangible. So it's not just nice to have and maybe I will do this here. Instead, put it in a way that's part of the flow. There are tangible consequences and rewards for using it properly. And also, when we think about the values of sportsmanship, sportswomanship, and we think about digital citizenship and how important it is to our games, and how important it is to the longevity of our games, so people keep playing it, people keep having fun and making friends, as we saw here that a lot of us have made friends online, we definitely want to put those values at the forefront and not have it as an afterthought. So I just wanted to have a final call to action here for everybody. If you are not part of the Fair Play Alliance, it would be great to talk to you. Yeah, feel free to reach out to us. You can visit our website. You can send us an email. Talk to me today or tomorrow. I have some wicked stickers from the Fair Play Alliance as well that I can give out. And it would be awesome to talk to you and tell you more about the Alliance and hear about your work as well and how you think you can make a difference in the player behavior side of things. Thank you very much. I think we have some time for questions, so please fire them away.
Right here. I'm coming. Sorry.
Sorry to make you run. A quick question, just outside of online play and multiplay, what else do you look into for behavior? Like, do you touch into loot boxes, into mechanics, into solo play, and that kind of stuff?
Yes, there are other things as well. For example, matchmaking, right? A lot of our members talk about matchmaking for sure a lot, because that is also going to reduce the friction that I was mentioning in terms of expectations. And even like sometimes you're talking about very wildly different expectations if you're talking about somebody who is super high ranked, competitive, versus someone who is starting or just wants to have fun after a long day, right? So that's one of the mechanics that I can think that's more tangible is the matchmaking side of things. But we look at all sorts of systems. For example, player reports. Right? Like traditionally, player reports have been almost like you dump this in a black hole, you report someone, and who knows what happens with the report you send, right? So not very encouraging to keep using that report button. Some of our members are starting to give a lot of great feedback and saying, hey, your report has actually caused an action. Action was taken against an account because of you, so thanks for doing that. And different flows, right? Different flows with different design, sometimes fun designs that involve the main characters of the game as well, that prompts a certain thinking in the player, ties it back to the culture of the game. We have been seeing some really good results in that area when we provide timely and proper feedback to the players.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. Very nice. I actually have a question related. I know you have experience with the penguin before, and then the question is, what is the difference from your point of view between make like a safety environment from like related to kids and very young? And I remember in Brazil, are you Brazilian, I think, right? In Brazil,
Yes.
it was very, very popular, like a penguin, and my sister was playing and everybody. And then, like, what is the things that you notice that was different from, and then when we make games for everybody, and then we have also kids, but sometimes we have environment that's only for kids. And what is the main takeaways that you could notice the difference?
For sure, yeah, great question. Well, I've been in that realm for the under 13 realm for the longest time, right? So obviously, there's a lot of limits to certain things in that environment, because you have to abide, if you do business in the US, you have COPPA, which is a legislation, so you have to protect the personal information of children. In itself, that's a huge challenge, right, of what you can allow and not. And really, if you think about historically, a lot of systems were so limiting that kids couldn't share any numbers whatsoever, right? Not a very nice user experience overall for kids in the past. Things have changed quite a lot. But I would say, apart from that restriction in safety, where you think, like no personal information, of course, a very low tolerance for inappropriate content. But I've noticed like a change though over the years, like we were thinking about like kids' experiences and thinking we can't also just remove every risk from the equation, right? There needs to be some type of conflict and risk, and there's a difference between naughty and super dangerous content, right? But when I think about older audiences, really, you're just changing the dial a little bit and trying to understand what is acceptable for that community, what's not, what is part of that community and what's not. Of course, highly different from under 13, over 13, but essentially there's certain things that you need to watch for that community when it's under 13, and the rest in terms of behavior and incentivizing positive behavior, having positive systems, there are a lot of very common ground. It's just that difference there of legislation and things that will not fly with that age, right?
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. Just had a quick question about new players when it comes to endorsement systems. So for example, I play Overwatch. I was just playing last night. But when someone reaches, let's say, like level 3, level 4, you assume they're very positive players. But let's say someone just started playing the game tomorrow. Do you think, I could be wrong about this, but do you think it could create a negative experience if they're not introduced to players who could be people they want to play with because they're new? And do you think that affects the game negatively, or do you think they'll get there by default because they're good players or they're nice and they have good sportsmanship?
That's a really good question. I mean, I will speak more for myself, okay? I cannot necessarily speak for the Overwatch team, but by the very way that they have crafted that experience there, I think that it's probably their best interest to trust in that journey, like you said, trust that they are new players, they're going to engage with that system and they're going to progress or not, right? But given the way that they have set it up with the right encouragements and the tangible consequences for using it, even though, yeah, they're starting at the bottom of that level of endorsement there, I think there is enough encouragement to use it properly and to trust in that journey. So I would say I don't see a lot of concern in that sense, and they have been having a lot of great results with it. You're welcome.
Hi. I have a bit of a complex question, so I hope I can articulate it properly. You mentioned a stat. 95% of players want a positive environment. It sounds high, right? There's only 5% of players that, say, if we extrapolate that, display disruptive behavior. And that sounds low. But when you think about these games, Overwatch and League of Legends, there's 10 players or 12 players in a match, and it only takes a single disruptive player to ruin the experience for all players across an entire game. So that happens frequently. I guess my question is, what types of features can prevent a single player from ruining that experience across the board? So say like the looking for group feature seems like a preventative measure of that. What's a in-time measure of that, like a mute system or something to the same effect?
Okay, so that one I'm going to take 100% from my perspective, okay? So not speaking on behalf of members of our alliance, from my point of view, because of my specialty working in this space of online safety. I definitely believe in using the right tools to achieve exactly what you said. And the right tools is a nice combination of artificial intelligence and human expertise to achieve that. And yeah, a temporary mute might be a great way of doing that. Perhaps it's a fake send or what we call shadow ban. That might be a good way of doing it. But at the end of the day, the basic philosophy that I really based my thoughts on is I've seen time and time again that most of the community at any given time are engaging positive behavior. Again, not static. People change their behavior. However, that minority that you're talking about, they can cause a lot of disruption. So why would we cater to the minority that's causing disruption and creating like maybe those crazy filters and things that are super heavy-handed and end up affecting everyone, or just leaving the Wild West there, so people, the minority is causing a lot of disruption? My thought is we should understand disruptive behavior and then apply the right tools and systems to address it. So to the small portion of the community who is disrupting, they will have their settings a little toned down, right? And they're not going to be able to express things in a certain way because they're causing disruption. For most users, though, they're still going to be able to chat freely and enjoy that experience. Welcome.
So thank you so much. We're all out of time. Thanks, Carlos.
Thank you.